Welcome to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring the random prompts of Daniel Rosehill as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters. Join us for deep dives into AI, technology, and whatever other random thing Daniel finds fascinating today. Subscribe on Spotify or your favorite podcatcher. Now, today's episode.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
Hi there, Herman and Corin. I'd love to chat today about label makers, one of our favorite topics on the My Word Prompts podcast. So I'm taking a few days away from the cold face of work here in order to try to assist in the effort of making our apartment habitable, decluttered, and more importantly, ready for our forthcoming move. We're working on those aspects at the same time. And just like any master procrastinator, I have my preferred method, which is whipping out a label printer in order to look like I'm actually doing something useful. These are brilliant gadgets, and I want to actually get your recommendations today, and maybe anyone else in the market for one. This will be useful for them. Let me describe my label making history and frustrations, starting with the Dymo 160. This was fine. It was one of those basic things on Amazon, and I had friends who advocated for these things. I wanted to try it out, and it actually held up for a number of years and very well, but it bit the dust lately. The other one that I picked up was probably not the best purchase, a QL700 from Brother, which a local store told me was just as good as the QL800, but it's actually not. But it's fine. It does printed labels and it can do wide labels. So for the boxes and stuff like that, it's useful, but it doesn't really do well those thin labels and outdoor labels. Now, the type of labeling I'm doing, I'm currently out in the tool shed, if you can call it that, and we have an outdoor shelf with boxes and shelves, and I'm just giving the shelves numbers and putting little labels on the boxes. And the way Homebox works, this terrific inventory tool, is let's say you want to record where your sander is or another power tool like your drill. So you'll create an asset for the drill. You'll create a storage location for the shelf, and then you'll just write down that goes in there. And the final kind of piece is to just have a label on the drill and one on the storage, so you can see visually, put it back in the right place. And that is, it's not complex, but in its simplicity is great discipline building for folks like me who just tend to put stuff down anywhere. So our place is a bit more organized. Anyway, I hadn't used one. I've always wanted one of these industrial or electrician's label printers. So recently when I decided it was time to start labeling things again, I picked up on AliExpress one of the many P1000 clones. Now, it is one thing about labels that's good to know for those who haven't yet joined the labeling rabbit hole. Once you buy a machine, a label printer, you buy into an ecosystem of supported tapes. And that's why sticking with a popular product, even if it's just a clone, can actually be a really good move, because the OEM tapes are what can get really pricey. And I've had generally, actually pretty much throughout, good experience with non-OEM tapes, except for trying to use non-outdoor tapes outdoors, which you can't really hold that against the tape so much. It's not what it's built for. So I went for this one because I didn't really know if I'd like an electrician's tape printer, and I like it very much, and I ordered some tapes. Now, I can tell that this is a $20 product, this particular tool. It just is missing a lot of features. I'm currently putting the labels on boxes, and if I want to put, let's say, 5 labels for the box number, I need to manually cut each one, and it can't do like a proper batch whereby you do that first cut for alignment and then just fire off 5 copies. Each one you have to go through that alignment thing at the start of it. So it's just poorly thought out, poorly designed, and not efficient as well for tape consumption. So what I would like to do is revert to my previous strategy of buying a quality OEM label printer and just tapping into AliExpress now and again for stocking up on actual tape cartridges. One thing that I have, I guess the limits in this product, or the lack of batch support, The battery life is pretty poor. And I guess I've used these desktop label printers, and those are really handy when you have a big batch of labels to print. But the handheld come into their own when you're kind of crouched under a computer station or a desk and you want to put an asset number on a piece of technical inventory. I've always wondered, why hasn't anyone tried to make one that kind of can do the best of both worlds? Like it can be connected via USB, and you can also take it off and have it handheld, because that would seem like a very smart product to me. Does Brother have anyone that has attempted that and is compatible with the TZE231 and all its other labels? The next question, Herman and Corin, is basically, what would you recommend? Wi-Fi and internet connectivity, I guess the computer stuff would probably be the most useful for me, but a smartphone app would be nice as well. The key thing would be compatibility with this label series and a decent battery life. We talked about in our episode yesterday about batteries, and this actually was really interesting to me. I asked you, is switching over to rechargeable sustainable? And between built-in rechargeable batteries and external rechargeable batteries, and you actually made a great point that rechargeable, if you like me, you're trying to buy sustainable electronics, picking a product with external batteries, as counterintuitive as it sounds, can actually be the more sustainable direction, because you're decoupling the product lifespan from the lifespan of the battery. So in that vein, I guess something with external batteries would be good. And finally, another deficit in this cheap AliExpress label printer is it has a USB Type-C, but when it's on AC, I don't think it's actually switching on to power because the batteries are in. It doesn't have that logic to know what's going on. So these are the reasons why these cheap label printers are, I think, a false economy. It was useful to test out the waters with, but I want to buy something proper. Herman and Corin, Brother Products. I have some family visiting from the US soon who I'm sure would be delighted for me to send them a label printer on Amazon and say, could you put this in your suitcase? I'm just kidding, but I might be able to squeeze that favor. If not, I think we can find these Brother printers. Herman and Corin, help me find a label printer in today's episode of My Weird Prompts.
Hey everyone, welcome back to My Weird Prompts. I am Corin, and I'm currently looking at a literal mountain of cardboard boxes in our hallway here in Jerusalem. It seems like the big move is actually happening, which means my brother is in his absolute element. Herman, I found a box this morning labeled Miscellaneous Level 3. Can you explain to the listeners what that actually means?
Herman Poppleberry here, and Corn, if you have to ask, you are clearly not respecting the hierarchy of the move. Miscellaneous Level 3 refers to items with a low utility to weight ratio that are required for seasonal maintenance but do not belong in the primary tool chest. And yes, I have never felt more alive. There is nothing like the chaos of a relocation to justify my deep, almost spiritual obsession with categorization and taxonomy. If it is not in a box, it is being sorted. If it is in a box, it is being indexed. And if it is being indexed, you better believe it is getting a high-resolution laminated label.
It is true. I walked into the kitchen this morning, and I am pretty sure even the individual avocados have been assigned a serial number. I saw one that said AVO004, and I just walked back out. But it is actually perfect timing, because today's prompt from Daniel is about exactly that. Daniel is currently in the thick of organizing his apartment and his tool shed for a move, and he is hitting some serious roadblocks with his current labeling setup. He is frustrated, he is surrounded by half-peeled stickers, and he needs a professional intervention.
I felt for him when I heard that audio. He is dealing with what I call the labeling plateau. It is that tragic moment in an organizer's life where you start with the basic handhelds. You think you are organized, and then you realize that the hardware is actually holding back your productivity. He has been through the Dyma 160, which is basically a toy. He tried the Brother QL 700, which is a great machine but wrong for this application. And he even dabbled in some AliExpress clones, which we really need to talk about because they are a minefield. He is looking for that perfect hybrid. Something high quality OEM, compatible with the TZE231 tapes, and capable of both handheld flexibility and computer-connected batch printing.
It is a very specific set of requirements, but honestly, it is the right set of requirements. If you are going to invest the time to catalog a whole shed, you might as well do it right. Daniel mentioned he is using Homebox, which is this fantastic open source inventory management tool to track everything. For those who do not know, Homebox lets you create a digital twin of your physical storage. So he needs a workflow that can handle a lot of data, without him having to manually type every single label on a tiny rubber keyboard with his thumbs.
Exactly. And I think the first thing we need to clear up for the listeners, and maybe for Daniel too, is why some of his previous choices were frustrating him. He mentioned the Brother QL700. Now, the QL series is fantastic for what it is designed for. I have one on my desk for shipping labels. But the QL series uses direct thermal printing on paper labels. Those are great for mailing packages or labeling a folder that stays in a climate-controlled office. But the moment you put a paper QL label in a shed, or on a power tool, or even in a damp garage, it is going to degrade. Direct thermal paper reacts to heat and light. If that shed gets hot in the summer, Daniel is going to walk in and find a bunch of black rectangles where his labels used to be.
Right, and that is why he is specifically asking for the TZE 231 compatibility. For those who are not as deep in the weeds as Herman, the TZE series is Brothers laminated tape. It is a completely different technology. It uses thermal transfer, not direct thermal. There is a layer of ink that gets sandwiched between a clear protective laminate and the adhesive backing during the printing process. These things are basically indestructible. You can put them in the dishwasher, you can leave them in the sun, you can wipe them with industrial chemicals, and they stay perfectly legible.
They are the gold standard for home and industrial organization. I have TZE labels on my outdoor fuse box that have survived 5 years of Jerusalem sun and rain, and they look like they were printed yesterday. But here is the catch that Daniel is running into. Most of the machines that use those tapes fall into two camps. You have the simple handhelds like the PTH-110, which have terrible screens, no connectivity, and those awful ABCD keyboards that drive people crazy. Or you have these massive industrial bricks that cost $400 and are designed for electricians labeling server racks. Daniel is looking for that Goldilocks zone. He wants the portability of a handheld for when he is out in the shed labeling shelves, but he wants to be able to plug it into his laptop to fire off 50 labels at once from his Homebox database.
And the batch printing is where most of the entry-level models fail. If you have ever tried to print 30 labels on a Dymo 160, you know the pain. You are typing, you are hitting print, you are waiting for the slow motor, you are cutting it manually with that little plastic lever, and then the machine wastes an inch of tape at the beginning of every single label for alignment. It is a massive waste of time and, more importantly, a waste of expensive tape.
It really is. That lead-in waste is the bane of my existence. It is actually a physical limitation of where the cutter is placed relative to the print head in those cheap units. But before we get into the specific hardware recommendations, I want to talk about that sustainability point Daniel raised. He mentioned our discussion from a previous episode about batteries. He is looking for something that can handle rechargeable batteries or has a solid power management system. A lot of the cheap clones he mentioned, like those P1000 clones you see on AliExpress or the various Fomimo units, have terrible power logic. They might have a USB-C port, but they do not actually know how to pull power from it efficiently while batteries are inserted, or they have a high parasitic drain that kills the batteries even when the device is off.
It is that classic false economy. You save $30 on the hardware, but you spend it all back on wasted tape and dead batteries within 6 months. Plus, the software on those clones is usually a nightmare. It is some proprietary app that requires every permission on your phone, including your location and your contacts, just to print the word hammer. It is a privacy nightmare, and the apps are often abandoned after a year or two.
Oh, do not get me started on the app permissions. No, if you want a reliable tool that is going to last 10 years, you stay with the big players. And since Daniel is already invested in the TZE ecosystem, we are looking squarely at Brother. They have a few models that fit this hybrid description, but one in particular stands out as the absolute winner for a power user who wants both desktop and mobile flexibility.
Are you thinking of the PTP 700 series?
Precisely. Specifically, the Brother P-Touch P750W. Now, let's break down why this is the move for Daniel. The P750W is essentially a bridge. It is a desktop-style printer in terms of its internal mechanics and speed, but it is small enough to be portable. It has a built-in cutter that is fully automatic and, most importantly, it supports half cuts.
Wait, explain the half-cut feature for everyone, because that is the single biggest game changer for batch printing.
It really is. When you are doing a batch of, say, 20 labels for a tool chest or a set of bins, a normal printer will print one, cut it completely, spit it out, and then do the next one. This creates a mess of tiny labels and wastes tape on every single one. With a half cut, the printer scores the top layer of the tape and the ink, but leaves the backing paper intact. So you get a long, continuous strip of labels that you can just peel off one by one like a sticker sheet. It saves an incredible amount of time, and more importantly, it eliminates that wasted lead-in tape between every label. You only get the waste at the very beginning of the entire strip. If you are printing 50 labels, you are saving about 4 feet of tape.
That alone pays for the printer over time if you are doing high-volume work like a move. And the P750W has Wi-Fi and USB, right?
It does, and this is the part that fits Daniel's workflow perfectly. When he is sitting at his desk, he can plug it in via USB and use the P-Touch Editor software. Now, we are currently in February of 2026, and the latest version of P-Touch Editor is version 6.1. It is actually very powerful now. You can import an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file exported directly from Homebox, and it will automatically generate labels for every row in that database. You can include QR codes that link back to the Homebox item page, barcodes, different fonts, and even custom icons for tools.
That is exactly what he needs for the Homebox integration. He can export his inventory list, bring it into P-Touch Editor, and print the entire shed's worth of labels in one go. But what about the handheld aspect? He mentioned he wants to be able to use it as a handheld too.
Now, this is where we have to be precise. The P750W does not have a physical keyboard or a screen on the unit itself. It is what they call a PC connectable printer. However, because it has Wi-Fi and NFC, you use the Brother iPrint and Label app on your smartphone or tablet. So, Daniel can have the printer in his hand or on a shoulder strap, walk into the shed, and use his phone as the interface. It gives him all the flexibility of a handheld, but with a much better screen and keyboard than any physical label maker could ever provide. You are typing on your phone's glass, which is infinitely faster than those rubber buttons.
That makes a lot of sense. Trying to type on those tiny ABCD keyboards on the cheap units is a recipe for carpal tunnel. Using a smartphone app to design the label and then just hitting print while the machine is hanging from your belt is much more ergonomic. And what about the power situation? Does it take AA batteries?
It does. It can run on 6 AA batteries, which means he can use high-quality NEMH rechargeables like Enaloops. That addresses his sustainability concern perfectly. Alternatively, it can use a lithium-ion rechargeable battery pack that Brother sells separately, or you can just plug it into the wall with the included AC adapter when you are doing those big batches at your desk. It is the most versatile power setup they offer.
I can see why that is the top recommendation. But I can hear Daniel's voice in my head saying, but what if I really want an all-in-one unit with a physical keyboard? Is there an OEM Brother model that has the connectivity in the batch printing but also works as a standalone device without needing a phone or a computer?
There is. If he absolutely insists on a physical keyboard, he should look at the Brother PTD 610BT. That is the successor to the very popular D600. It is a bit bulkier because it has a full QWERTY keyboard and a large high-resolution color backlit screen. It connects via Bluetooth to your phone and USB to your computer.
Does it support the same TZE-231 tapes?
Yes, it supports tapes up to 24 millimeters, which is about an inch wide. That is great for the tool shed because sometimes you want larger text or a big QR code that is easy to scan from across the room. The D610BT is fantastic because it is truly a standalone machine. You can sit on the floor of the shed and type out labels all day. But when you get back to your desk, you plug it into the USB port, and it becomes a high-speed PC printer just like the P750.
So it is a choice between the P750W, which is smaller and uses the smartphone as the screen, or the D610BT, which is a bit more of a tank but has the keyboard built in.
Exactly. For a tool shed environment, I actually lean toward the P750W. It is more compact, And since Daniel is already using a digital inventory system like Homebox, he is likely going to have his phone or a tablet with him anyway to check where things go. Why carry around a bulky keyboard unit when your phone is a better interface? Plus, the Wi-Fi on the 750W is often more stable for long-distance printing than Bluetooth, especially if he is moving between the house and the shed.
That is a good point. Sheds are often notorious for being Faraday cages if they are made of metal or have heavy insulation. Having that Wi-Fi connectivity might be a bit more robust if he is moving around. Now, let's talk about the tapes for a second. Daniel mentioned the AliExpress clones and how he has had decent luck with non-OEM tapes. What is your take on that for someone in his position? If he buys a high-end Brother machine, should he stick to the expensive Brother-branded tapes?
This is a classic debate in the labeling community. My take is this: for the machine itself, use a high-quality OEM printer. The print head is the most delicate part, and the cheap clones often have inconsistent heat profiles that can wear out the head or cause jams. But for the tapes, there are some very high-quality third-party TZE-compatible tapes out there that cost a fraction of the Brother ones. If you are labeling 50 boxes for a move, the cost difference is significant. You are looking at maybe $18 for a genuine roll versus $5 for a high-quality third-party one.
I have noticed that too. Some of the third-party tapes actually have better adhesive for certain surfaces. I once bought some extra strength adhesive tapes for labeling my plastic bins, and they worked better than the standard Brother ones.
True, but you have to be careful with the outdoor stuff. Daniel mentioned a tool shed. If those labels are going to be exposed to a lot of UV light or extreme temperature swings, the Brother OEM tapes had been tested for that specifically. They have a patented process where the characters are printed on the underside of the laminate. Some of the cheap clones will fade or the laminate will peel off after a summer in a hot shed. So my advice to Daniel would be, use the cheap tapes for the moving boxes that are going to be unpacked in a month. But for the permanent tool inventory and the outdoor shelves, spring for the genuine Brother TZE tapes. It is worth the peace of mind.
That is a solid strategy. Now, I want to circle back to the batch printing and the software integration. You mentioned P-Touch Editor. How hard is it to actually connect a database to that? If Daniel has his tools in a spreadsheet, is it a technical nightmare to get them onto labels?
Not at all. It is actually surprisingly intuitive. You basically open the software, click on Database, and point it to your Excel or CSV file. Then you just drag and drop the fields you want onto the label layout. So you could have a field for the tool name, a field for the serial number, and a field that automatically generates a QR code based on the URL from Homebox. Once you have that template set up, you just hit print, and the machine will cycle through every row in your database. It even handles the sequential numbering for you if you want to go that route.
That sounds like an absolute dream for someone who is currently manually typing on a Dymo 160. You could literally label an entire shed in 20 minutes once the data is ready.
And that is the key. The investment isn't just in the hardware, it is in the time saved. If you are moving, your time is at a premium. Spending an extra $100 on a printer that can automate the most tedious part of the process is one of the best investments you can make. Plus, the result looks professional. When you have perfectly aligned, consistent labels with QR codes, the future version of Daniel, who is looking for a specific drill bit in 6 months, is going to be so grateful.
I think future you is the person we should all be optimizing for. I often find myself annoyed at past, me for being lazy with labeling. I will look at a box that just says kitchen and realize there are 6 boxes that say kitchen, and I have no idea which one has the coffee maker.
Exactly. And that is where the Homebox integration is so powerful. You do not even need to write coffee maker in big letters. You just have a label that says Kitchen Box 12 with a QR code. You scan it with your phone, and it shows you a photo of the contents and a full list. But for that to work, you need a label that does not fall off and a printer that does not make you want to throw it out the window.
So, to summarize for Daniel, the recommendation is the Brother P750W as the primary pick for its hybrid connectivity, batch printing capabilities, and power flexibility. It is the professional's choice for a reason. If he really wants that physical keyboard for quick one-off labels without grabbing his phone, the PTD 610BT is the alternative. Both will use the TZE tapes he already likes, and both will handle the high-volume work of a move much better than the entry-level or clone models he has tried.
And I would add one more tip for him: buy a couple of the extra strength adhesive TZE tapes for the shed specifically. They are usually designated as TZES series, like S231. They have a more aggressive adhesive that bonds better to textured plastic and metal, which is what most power tools and storage bins are made of. Standard tape can sometimes flag or peel at the corners on those surfaces.
That is a great tip. I actually think I might need to borrow one of these when we get to the new place. My current system of scribbling on masking tape with a Sharpie is starting to look a bit pathetic compared to your serial numbered avocados.
It is never too late to see the light, Corn. Once you go thermal transfer, you never go back. There is a certain dignity in a well-printed label. It says to the world, I have my life together, or at least I am very good at pretending I do.
I will take the appearance of having my life together at this point. That is a win in my book. Honestly though, the psychology of it is interesting. When you have a professional grade tool, you are more likely to use it. Daniel mentioned that labeling is a form of master procrastination for him, but I think it is more than that. It is a way of lowering the cognitive load of daily life. If you do not have to think about where the sander is, you have more mental energy for actually using the sander.
That is a deep insight, Corn. It is about reducing friction. Every time you cannot find a tool, that is a micro frustration that builds up. Over time, it makes you less likely to start a project because the overhead of just getting started is too high. So, in a way, a high-quality label printer is a creativity-enabling device. It clears the path so you can actually do the work you want to do.
I love that. A label printer as a catalyst for creative work. Only on this show could we elevate office supplies to that level of philosophical importance. But it is true. Whether you are an electrician, a hobbyist in a shed, or just someone trying to survive a move in Jerusalem, the right tools make all the difference.
They really do. And I hope this helps Daniel get through the move with his sanity intact. I'm looking forward to seeing the after photos of that tool shed. If it is as organized as I think it is going to be, it might be the most beautiful place in the city.
Well, if he needs any help with the heavy lifting, he knows where we are. Though I suspect I would just be handed a label printer and told to get to work.
You could do worse, Corn. You could do worse.
Fair enough. Well, I think that covers the label printer conundrum. Daniel, hopefully the P750W is the missing piece of your organizational puzzle. It is a solid piece of kit that should serve you well through this move, and many more to come.
And for everyone else listening, if you have found yourself in a similar rabbit hole of organization, or if you have a favorite labeling hack, we would love to hear about it. There is a whole world of niche productivity tools out there, and we are always looking for the next one to obsess over.
Absolutely. And hey, if you are enjoying the show and finding these deep dives into the mundane but fascinating world of tech and organization helpful, we would really appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your podcast app or on Spotify. It genuinely helps other people find the show, and it keeps us motivated to keep digging into these weird prompts.
It really does. We read all of them, and it is great to see the community growing. This has been My Weird Prompts. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and basically anywhere you get your podcasts. Our website is myweirdprompts.com, where you can find the RSS feed and a contact form if you want to send us your own weird prompts.
You can also reach us directly at show@myweirdprompts.com. We love hearing from you guys. Good luck with the move, Daniel, and we will talk to you all next time.
Until then, keep everything in its right place. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My Weird Prompts, an AI-generated podcast featuring Daniel Rosehill's AI prompts, as answered by a revolving cast of friendly AI characters including me, Cornelius the Sloth. Subscribe on Spotify or visit myweirdprompts.com.